Have you been wanting to see your favorite carnivore recipes in cookbook form? Then boy do I have the proposition for you. I've started an Indiegogo campaign. These funds will allow me to get this book out much quicker than I could otherwise. If you're interested in seeing what the perks are, check out the link in my description below or go to www.indiegogo.com/at/CarnivorousChef. Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. I swear I thought I made this recipe before on this channel. On my quest to keep things simple for a bit before I ramp up my pork rind prowess, I wanted to show you how I make egg drop soup. Even when I wasn't following this diet, the way I make it here is actually pretty similar to how I've always made it, enhancing a broth to make a better base. But instead of cornstarch, I use a super special ingredient to thicken the soup. You'll learn more about that later though. But before we get started, how about you slaughter that like button and annihilate that subscribe button? Let me just get in here and get ready real quick. Gotta set up my camp stove and grab a really old aluminum pot. Talk about seasoned pans, am I right? Just kidding, we need to do some prep first. Like always, all ingredients are optional. If you think or know that any of these will not work for you, use the basic ingredients and it'll still be pretty good. I grabbed some ginger and started scraping the skin off with a spoon. I pulled out all that I had and realized it was just way too much here. You really don't need that much. Oops. You don't really need that much ginger here for this recipe. A little chunk should be more than enough. Next up, let's deal with some green onions. I have a small handful here, but for now, I'm just going to use one to chop it up. I'll be using it for the garnish later on. If you take it and turn it to a 45-degree angle and chop, you'll get what is known as a biased cut. It makes for a much nicer presentation than these little circles, but feel free to cut little circles if you want. I'm not judging your green onions, just mine. After that, grab 3 cloves of garlic. Then set these 3 cloves to the side because that's all we're going to do with them. For your egg drop soup, you'll need eggs. My ratio for egg drop soup is 1 egg to 1 cup of broth. I'll be using 2 cups of broth, so I'll need 18 eggs. Wait, 2 eggs. Spoon whisk these up. You don't have to get them too incorporated. Next up, if you have a gas burner or grill, throw the rest of your green onions directly on the flame. We're looking for some nice char to add a little extra dimension of flavor. An optional step, but it does add a little smokiness to the soup. You can also roast these in the oven at high heat to get a little color on them, and they'll do something similar. Okay, grab your old pot and add in your charred scallions, your garlic cloves, the ginger, and 2 cups of chicken stock. Here I'm adding about 1.5 tablespoons of liquid aminos for an additional depth of flavor. And then I'm following that up with about 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. Follow that with 1 teaspoon of kosher salt and get the heat set to high. We want this to come up to a simmer so that all of these flavors can incorporate. We're kind of making a savory tea at this point. But we're also heating because we need to add in 1 packet of unflavored gelatin. This will give the soup that texture that you get at the Chinese buffets with their egg drop soup. The mouthfeel from that soup is typically done by making a cornstarch slurry. This gelatin is the best possible workaround. It'll also turn your eggs into egg drop jello if you place it into the fridge after you're done making it. Dissolve that in and let everything steep for at least 5 minutes on a simmering heat. Once that time has passed, turn the heat off and remove all of the vegetation in the pot. We're about to add in the eggs, but I suggest letting the broth cool down for a minute or 2 before pouring in your eggs. The eggs are going to cook either way, but the hotter it is, the harder they'll set up. We want this to be more velvety than microwave scrambled eggs. Once your eggs are added, we can serve this up. I'm not too sure why, but I went all fancy with a brown napkin that we use at the restaurant. But get as fancy as you want. Top this with a little of your green onions. And then I'm going to take this first bite for my Patreon community. I'm really happy to have found gelatin as an alternative to thickening soups. It's much more satisfying than using anything else to thicken things, in my opinion. The mouthfeel is just more natural. But that's it, egg drop soup. Yes, there's some vegetation in here, but it's all in an effort to make a tastier soup.